Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Mosaic podcast. I am in love with this podcast, and I'll tell you why. On the farthest reach of what happens in this podcast is I get a chance to talk to people that I would never in a million years talk to. And what I love about it is I get to invite you into those conversations. The woman I have on today, I met. There could not be a more random way of meeting somebody than the way I met her. We don't know each other. We've never talked to each other. This is our first conversation. In fact, I messed up the timing on it. I sent her a cancellation. But she flowed with it. And what happened is I discovered her while I was searching for a photo to use for a Facebook post that I was making that said, "Your voice matters." And she had a photo that was on Google and I thought, oh, this is interesting. Here's a person that's doing something about voice matters. And I opened up the photo, I opened up her website, and I became intoxicated with what she's doing in the world. I have no idea who she is. I have no idea how this is going to come, but we've had a very vulnerable conversation in the green room before this of just saying, we don't talk about on our show, we don't talk about what people can see on your website of who you are. We talk about really who the person is behind that. And so it's with some trepidation and fear that we walk into this place. And I told Nicole, I will hold her in that space, and I want you to hold her in that space too, because let's face it, part of the reason our world is lacking in connection is because the wall that I put around me and the wall that you put around you is what's connecting, but there's no intimacy there because I can't see you because all I see is my wall and all you see is your wall. And the only way for us to really connect is for us to hold the space to drop that wall through our kindness to each other and our kindness to ourselves. So I'm asking our audience today to just be kind, to open up that space for us to just share ourselves as vulnerably and real as we are, to hear everything that happens without judgment. I don't know where this conversation will go, and I'm probably overselling what I need you to do in it because I don't think it's going to go that far, right? But I want to invite you in because this is a beautiful process of getting to know somebody I don't even know, but that I was intoxicated by before I even met her, by what she does. Let me give you a short little bio because you know bios and I don't get along that well, but let me give you a short bio. And Nicole, how do you say your last name? I should have done that in the Greek.
Hague.
Hague. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Nicole Hague is a 3-time cancer survivor. Hold it. What? Is a 3-time cancer survivor? 3 times. And she turned into a certified life coach. She's living proof that it's possible to make your dreams a reality and that you can live a happy, peaceful, and fulfilled life even when it feels like anxiety, uncertainty, or adversity will get the best of you. Who doesn't want to have that? It is with my heart open that I welcome you completely, Nicole, to the Mosaic podcast. Welcome and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much. And I'm honored and just humbled that you came across me. So I'm very happy to be here.
I love when life happens that way. We think it's random circumstances or coincidence, but there never really is. There's always an underlying hand in it that's guiding us. And when we're open and receptive, we get that. Mm-hmm. So what I want to do is I want to sort of learn about who you are, not so much as I say from the website, but what did your parents do when you were growing up?
Well, unfortunately, my parents were not all that present. So I never knew my father, and my mother, she did the best she could, but she wasn't really the mother or the role model that I would have hoped she would have been. So it's kind of a tough question to start with. You're getting right to the heart of the matter.
Well, hello.
So they weren't really present in my life. So that's probably where I would start with on that.
So do you remember the first time you realized that your parents weren't present in your life?
Yeah, I was young. Well, the truth is I wouldn't say there's a trigger moment, but when I look back on my childhood, I don't feel like there was ever any presence. It was very lonely. So never knew my father and my mother. It was, she had her own demons and things, and she had me when she was young. So my youngest memories are of being part of her life, if you will, being woken up in the middle of the night, being left alone. So it wasn't necessarily, I don't want to say a priority, but I never felt that sense of love or protection, or that I was, a top priority in her life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what happened? Were you with your mom for a long time, or were you moved to another location? Did foster care come in, or did you go to relatives, or how did you get raised?
It's funny. In retrospect, I've done a lot of growth and healing and trying to reflect these last couple of years as I've just come to the reality of, wow, there's a lot that I've been through here. And looking back, it's hard to, I was with my mom my entire childhood. I never lived without her, but I learned really young to almost be quiet and invisible, if you will, not to speak up about what was going on, because I don't know for sure, but there must have been a point where she did try to scare me, that if people knew what was going on, they were going to take me away. And so I never wanted to be taken away. So as a result, I was just really quiet. I was a great student. I did have a grandmother and aunts and uncles that were in my life, but they were not really in the day-to-day. But my grandmother, she was my shining light. And I never wanted to disappoint her. I remember when I was young, we lived in Boston and she lived south of the city. And whenever I was scared, every year I would ask for one of those, motorized cars.
Yeah.
And I would tell myself, if I could get this, if anything ever really got bad enough, I could just drive that to her. I would know how to get there.
And how old were you when you were thinking you were going to drive your motorized car?
Oh my gosh, I was probably 6. So while she wasn't there in the house and didn't know the extent of what was going on, I always knew I had her, which gave me some sort of hope, if you will. But yeah, I somehow figured out how to be under the radar so that I could stay in my home with my mom, because even though it wasn't ideal, I knew it was better than being caught up in a system or being taken away or anything of that nature.
Yeah. And so for guests that are listening, and listeners that are guests is really more what I want to say, to this moment, what just almost dumbfounds me is, remember the way I found Nicole was by searching online for a picture to go with Your Voice Matters. And when you hear how what she went through and the way she was raised, of having to remain quiet and never being able to use her voice because she didn't know what her voice what would happen. Like, is it any wonder that part of her work would be to help people find their voice and help people discover what's going on? So it's so interesting somehow to see that the seeds of who we are planted in the in the first moments of our life, and that every moment of us is a mosaic of who we've become. Mm-hmm. And so in some ways, that's the most horrible situation you could ever imagine. And in some ways, it's the most enlightening moments that happen, because it shined light on the direction of where the future is. So thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty and sharing that with me.
Yeah, of course.
When you were a kid, besides the fact that you wanted to get on your motorized car and drive over the grandma's, what was your dream? What did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
It's changed so many times. And I've asked myself this a lot, because as you go through transitions in life and you're trying to figure out what your next step is, I always think, I wish someone could tell me what I always said I wanted to do when I was little.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, I don't have that type of person in my life to tell me that. But when I think back on it, I have one of the happy memories I have was actually, I didn't play house or dolls or anything like that. I would design houses for my Barbies. So that was part of it, is I always loved to design and decorate. And then I also made one of my cousins start a cafe with me, and I called it the Lilac Cafe. And so for an entire summer, we ran this little cafe that we would just make fake tea and coffee for people. And it was just so much fun. So that's what I think of when I think back to it. So, and then as I got older, I thought about travel in the world and things of that nature, but there isn't one in particular thing that sticks out.
So when you were making that make pretend cafe, because it was a make pretend cafe, right?
Yeah.
You were,
Yeah.
okay. What would you say was the thing that drove you to having a cafe? What is it you were looking for in the experience of a cafe, of serving people these drinks and having people sit at tables? What feeling resonates in you that comes up to say, this is why I think I wanted to do that?
I think it's the energy and the atmosphere. I love that energy. It's very welcoming. It's very warm. You can't walk. I mean, you can find coffee shops that are kind of stark and cold, but for the most part, you walk in and they're friendly, they're welcoming. So that's part of what I think it was, is I wanted to have this safe place where probably I could be myself and just open up a little bit and feel that sense of warmth and energy and positivity and all that good stuff that comes with a coffee shop.
And so it sort of seems maybe obvious, but I don't want it to be obvious. I want to ask, as a result of not feeling that safe space at home and having this visualization of this place that you want to create where it's safe and you can be yourself and you can tell your stories and people can laugh together and, share with each other. What gave you the courage? First of all, what did it feel like not to be in that environment? And what did you have to, like, what did you have to hide from the world around you that you just wish you never had to hide?
Honestly, I think I hid all of me, which is really, really sad. You said at the beginning that we all crave connection, and it's so true, but I didn't learn that until after my first cancer diagnosis. And so for me, I always lived very superficial. I never let anyone get too close. I always had up this barrier where I would almost try to fit in. I never wanted to draw attention, so I never really would I never knew what it meant to be yourself, which sounds cliche, but it was more so, okay, how can I become part of this, whatever I was doing, this school or this activity, so that I wouldn't draw too much attention, but I would blend in.
Yeah.
So it was, just living that.
Does that imprint still sit on you, or are you making inroads into finding you now within that imprint, knowing that imprint's there?
Yeah.
But changing the pieces of that story around a little bit too.
The last 2 years of my life have pretty much been, I think we have multiple awakenings in our life, but the last 2 years have been a big awakening for me, where it has been making that shift from, okay, it's not what I do, but it's who you are, who you're being. And so I love that you said it's hard for you to give a bio, because I struggle to give you that bio. It's so hard for me to talk about myself, because it's true. How do you articulate the best of someone or their true essence without truly building that connection? And so I'm going through this phase right now where I am trying to figure out, who am I, just me as a human being?
Yeah.
And what is my message that I want to share by just being me? And so it's been an up and down that we all go through in life, but it's a beautiful journey.
Yeah, you're kind. It's a scary as hell journey. I know it because I've been on the same ride. And at 64, I'm a little bit older than you, probably just a tiny little bit. But the ride doesn't stop if you're really vulnerable and honest. So for me, I keep redefining myself. But look at the way life has impacted you. Because not only did it give you an imprint, but then it's tried to take your life 3 times by saying that the life that you are living, that in that imprint that you have, has to die. It isn't that your body has to die and that you had a kid, but something in you, a belief system. That's the way at least I see it. I don't know how you see it, that belief system has to be taken from you, and will continue to try and take it from you until you can emerge at this other side of a totally transformed human being who no longer allows the imprint of, I can't have a voice, I just need to fit in, to, here's my voice, baby, listen to me sing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, it does me such joy. Who knew that when I was looking for a picture for a Facebook post, that this conversation was behind that? That's what enamors me so much, when we follow the intuition of the connection.
Mm-hmm.
So how, like, we're totally off script. There never was a script, right? But this is why I don't have a set of questions, because who cares what the set of questions were, right? Like, how do you start to, because I'm sure so many listeners are out there, and their
Mm-hmm.
script may not be imprinted in the same way your script was imprinted, but so many of us feel like our voice just doesn't matter. And we can't speak up because nobody really wants to hear. And if we did, something bad will happen to us or somebody else.
Yeah.
How do you go about reshaping that? How do you go about recreating that? How do you work with people to help them? Or how do you do it personally even?
Yeah. So I was forced into it, I'll be honest.
Right.
uh, I've come to realize there are a couple of years where I never felt the sense of, oh, why me, or this pity as I was going through these things. But I always told myself, okay, this isn't my purpose, but it clearly has to serve some purpose. And in retrospect, when I look back on things, I realize we don't always get what we want, but we always get what we need. And so when I went into my third cancer diagnosis, it was thyroid cancer. And they told me we caught it early, so it was still small and it hadn't spread. But they told me there was a 1% chance that there would be complications. But they were very confident, and it should be easy, in, out, and as positive as they could be. So I come out of the procedure, and I'm brought into the room, and my family's there, but no one's smiling, and no one's saying anything. So I know it can't be great news. And then the doctor tells me that they got the cancer, but that 1% chance came true, and they weren't sure if I was ever going to speak again.
Wow. And
so it was taken from me, my voice. And it was a roller coaster of emotions, because obviously I was so grateful that it was safe. I was alive. I got through this. But initially I was angry, and then I was in shock, and you go through that wave of emotions. But then I remember being scared. And I think this was the start of kind of my spiritual awakening, if you will, which I'm still also going through. But I remember praying, and I hadn't prayed for years. And I just prayed and I prayed, and I said, if I get my voice back, I promise I won't waste it. I'll use it for some good. And so months went on, and slowly we tried some experimental injections and exercises and things of that nature, and it came back. And so I've been trying to carry out on that promise. In full disclosure, it took me about a year before I built up the confidence or really figured out how or where to get started, because we can get stuck in our own heads, and fear is a strong thing. So what it really helped me, and now what I tell people when they're struggling with this, is, first off, imagine if your voice was taken away. Yeah. Because it's something we take for granted, and it's a blessing. But if it was taken away, you would never be able to say or communicate or do anything. It's kind of ironic, where I'd been living so superficial and quiet, and all of a sudden you might have to be quiet. And it was the last thing I ever wanted. And then when you're in that moment of fear, something that's really helped me is to think, has there ever been someone who has said something, written something, shared something that changed you in some way? And then imagine if they hadn't shared it. You wouldn't have experienced that shift or that new perspective or that growth. It wouldn't have opened you up in life in some way. And so limiting yourself and not speaking up or sharing what you want to share, it's almost robbing someone else of that experience.
Yeah.
Making it about other people makes it less about you, and somehow you find the courage.
Yeah. Well, from an outsider who doesn't know you at all, I know you all of about 18 seconds. Right? The person that you see that is struggling to get that message out, or has struggled to get that message out, I see is already doing it, because here you are. You answered the call when I said to you something. You came on the show without any hesitation. Mm-hmm. I invited you to go to places where you haven't gone, and other things that you've done, and you walked right in. And so what I want you to see, because sometimes we don't see ourselves for the stories that we that override us. Mm-hmm. In my book, The Mosaic, I talk about one of the characters is a mirror maker. And Mo, the main character, has learned from the people around him how to see what he doesn't see. And that's why he finds her shop, because it's late at night and nobody, and it's a shop that nobody can see.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he walks in, the mirror maker already knows he knows how to see what he can't see, which is already a huge thing to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
But as she watches him as he walks around, and he looks in these different mirrors that are there, and the frames are exquisite and the mirrors are beautiful. And he stops in front of one and stays there for a while. And he actually hears the mirror saying something to him. And it's at that point that she comes out and says, "Have you found the mirror you like?" And he says, "Yes, I'm intoxicated by this one. It's copper. It's not even glass, but it's so shiny that I see myself in the copper reflection of this mirror."
Mm-hmm.
And the mirror maker says, "What is it saying to you?" And he said, "That's funny. I didn't think that I was going to tell anybody what it's saying to me, but I can tell you now because I didn't know that you even knew it was saying." And he says back to her a guarded version of what it said. He says the stories that he sees about himself. And she says, "No, that isn't what it's saying to you. And you know that. You're saying the stories that block you from hearing what it's saying. Can you actually hear what the mirror is saying to you? Now that you know how to see what you don't see,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to learn how to see what you do see. Like what's right here in front of you in this mirror. What does this mirror tell you without any of your stories, without any of your insecurities, without any of your problems? What's this mirror tell you?" And it feels to me that the mirror of your life has been single pointed in what it wants you to bring to this world, which is the beauty of that voice that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And I so honor you and salute you that you would stand up to that challenge when everything in your life has told you to be quiet or don't talk, or we're gonna take literally the voice box from you. Were your other two cancers also the same place, or were they?
No, they were melanoma.
Melanoma. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you have gone through quite a story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time. Like, I love what you said. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for others. Because as you're here with me, what I hear from you now, like I hear you say to me without between the words that you say, is the world really needs you right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're a world that has lost our voice. Even those of us who have voice, there's so much noise out there that our voice gets overrun by the noise of the world around us. And that's for those of us who have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many of us who have been told our voice doesn't matter. We can't speak. We can't do this. And I want to give you platform so that you can stand on that platform and speak, so that people not only can hear what you teach and what you say, but who you are, and the fact that you can stand up amidst all situations
Mm-hmm.
and be a voice to the world. Because until we become 8 billion voices strong, we will not become a united world.
Mm-hmm.
And our voices have to find the harmony together. Thoughts?
Need a few minutes to download.
Okay.
No, it's I have goosebumps. I just feel as though we were meant to come together here.
Yeah, I am so happy that what seemed like a coincidence was not a coincidence, and that we're spending time together, because it's an honor to have you on this platform. Okay. What have you seen from the life that life has given you that really surprised you?
Oh, what have you seen in the life that life's given you that's really surprised you? I guess that would be what I kind of said before, is that we don't always get what we want, but we always get what we need. So sometimes the things that seem absolutely terrible, cause the most pain, most fear, when you look back on them in a little time, once you grow, you realize that they shifted you in some way. They're usually your opportunities of growth or awakening, or evolvement. And so as tough as it can be, knowing that, or telling yourself, reminding yourself that, okay, this may be just what I need, kind of gives you that sense of hope and inner strength to get through it. And so that's something that has been really eye-opening for me that I didn't realize until just recently, because for a while I thought, did I do something wrong to deserve all this? Or am I being prepared for something? But then when you shift and you look, well, actually out of that came this lesson and this lesson, or this shifts in my life. I was always given the tools to kind of get through it.
Yeah.
So it was all just part of the greater plan.
Did you ever, or how often, or do you still have that feeling of, there's a great story they tell of Saint Teresa of Lisieux.
Mm-hmm.
She had a vision of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave her this beautiful message. And at the end, he said to her, my Lord, why do you make it so tough on everybody? Why do you have to be so hard on me? And he looks at her and he says, it's because I love you so much. And that's what I do to all my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And she, without missing a beat, said, no wonder you have so few, my Lord, because no one wants to put up with that. Have you ever thought, like, why me? What is this? Like, can't you find somebody else to play with? When is enough enough? Like, it would have been enough if you had no voice as a kid and you found your voice. It would be enough if you got cancer once and recovered from it. It would be more than enough if you had all those things happen and you got cancer twice. But you got 3 times. Do you ever say, like, enough's enough? Like, find someone else to play with?
So it's funny you say that, because that was probably what sparked this deeper search of who am I? I remember it. It was about a year ago, and my life was at a point that it was good. I was recently engaged. From the outside looking at everything, you always thought you wanted to fall into place, and I was healthy and had recovered. I bounced back, but internally I was just struggling. And I couldn't seem to shake this sadness in the sense of, okay, this has to all be for something. And what is this all meant for? And then I literally had this breakdown moment when I found myself, I said out loud, when will enough be enough? Like, when will I actually be able to be happy and at peace and just enjoy my life? I should be able to enjoy all these great things around me. And it was in that moment that I realized, wow, on that flip side, I always felt like, oh, maybe I'm made for more, I'm being prepared for more. It's really, you decide when you're enough. So that was when I realized, okay, I'm striving for more, thinking I'm being tested and have to prove something, but really you get to decide when enough is enough, and you get to decide when, okay, this is who I am.
Love that.
And so that's where I've been at this phase of my life.
Right. So something recently has come to me, and I'd love to run this by you and see what you think about it, because I think it's what you just said in a different language, but I just want to not assume that.
Mm-hmm.
The book that I wrote is called The Mosaic, and it's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day, and the adults tell him he asks the adults where his parents are, and they tell him they're in a place called heaven, and he sets out in search for the place called heaven. Mm-hmm. And the people he meets are completely not the heaven people you would think. They're ordinary people: a homeless man, a street worker, a artist, a waitress, a trash man, a gardener, and he wonders why he's meeting those people. But then when he listens to them tell their stories, he realizes the person he saw initially is not at all the person he's sitting with now. Mm-hmm. And so as beautiful as the story is, it's the space between the words of the story that started to speak to me even more. And what the space between the story tells me is that a mosaic is not a jigsaw puzzle. Like, the beauty of a jigsaw puzzle, and it's so incredibly beautiful that every piece has to be exactly in its place in order to make the picture whole. Mm-hmm. The beauty of a mosaic is pieces can be anywhere. You can put a piece in, and if it doesn't fit where it is, you can move it around and create a whole nother world around it. And I love that chaotic beauty of the mosaic, where even if you're stuck in a situation, you can break you can break it in the pieces, break the pieces because they're all broken pieces anyway. And you can recreate the pieces of your life to reshape the life that you're living. And those are our choices. Those are belief systems we have, and people that we hang out with, and thoughts that we have about how we're living our life. And are we going to be poor? Are we going to be wealthy? Where's affluence? And we're always one connection away, one piece away from where we are is a connection to a whole nother world, similar to the conversation that's happening here, right?
Yeah.
We were just one little piece away from, I was looking for this, I found this, and then I said, whoa, what's there? Like, oh, let me go through that door, right? So you said something that's completely intrigued me, which is, when is enough enough? And I always thought that I had to have this happen to me. And I wonder if the stories that we create from the time we grow up, which is, I have no voice and it's going to be hard and these things are going to be difficult and I have to have all these things happen to me to have this life become a different life, is as soon as we realize that, if we can just break that part of the mosaic and say, enough is enough now. I don't need to walk that story anymore because I know that story. I mean, how many times do I need to hear it? Now I get it, right? I'm here to have my voice and I'm here to live my voice. And I'm going to take my piece out of that collage of other pieces that constantly reminds me of that story. And I'm going to move it over to here where the people who have voice speak. Does that make sense to you? Does that resonate with what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've gotten goosebumps a couple of times when you've talked about your book. I can't wait to read through it all.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So tell me how you remove yourself from those stories that you know, and place yourself in the opportunity to write a new story, to incorporate all those things. Like the beauty of a mosaic, it's made up of all those different pieces. But the place that we set ourselves gives us an opportunity to tell that story in a whole new way, to a whole new group of people, and that's what intoxicates me about the whole image of it.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how, let's segue now in some of the work that you do and how you work with people and what even you do. Like we just jumped in. We didn't even, we didn't say like, oh, this is what she does. Right. So let's take a minute and get people on firm ground so that now that they know some of the backstory, we can get to the place where you play in the world the way you play.
So is this what you want me? I guess, what are you asking me?
Let's tell people sort of from where you've come from, what you're doing now, and how you and what you do. Like, if people, like, I already believe people will be in love with you just from this conversation.
Yeah.
Now, if they're in love with you, how do they find you? What is it that you want to do? What is your place? Now that you have your voice, what is your voice bringing to this world? And what would you be able to help people see in themselves?
Okay. Well, thank you. You're very kind, first off. Very
well,
kind.
I mean, I'm just saying the truth.
So I do work as a life coach. So I love to work one-on-one with people and help them in a world where some people do feel invisible or limited themselves, help them see themselves more clearly. But I'm going through this transitional phase of where I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I share this bigger message? And what is this bigger message? And so, in full transparency, it's still in that mosaic process of rebuilding it. But what I truly love to do is I've had these wake-up calls in life. And I would never wish any of them on anyone, but I truly believe that the wake-up calls we go through are what help us to see things more clearly, help us look through a different lens in life, see who we really are. And so I want to try to share more of these lessons with people so they don't necessarily have to go through that pain in their own life, but they can start to look at themselves through a different lens. And it's also making that shift of, we go through these phases in our life where we live according to shoulds at first. What should I do? And so then one awakening is we wake up and like, okay, well, these shoulds don't really make me happy. I feel like I'm living a lie. So we can start to live with happiness as our navigational guide in life, which is great because we should be happy in life, and happiness is a choice. We can choose to suffer. We can choose to be happy. It's a shift. And so that's where you can start to pursue things that you live your dreams, you know, live your happiest life. And I did that for a while, but then this bigger shift was that enough is enough. I realized that inner peace as a navigational guide brings about just so much more fulfillment and joy and understanding. It just helps you embrace who you really are and embrace where you are in life and enjoy it moment to moment. And so I really love helping people have these shifts and these wake up moments in their own life so they can see themselves through a different lens and start to live with that inner peace.
So let's stay there. Let's drill down there a little if we can,
Yeah.
because you're right in my wingspan now. I spent my whole life devoting it to finding that inner peace.
Mm-hmm.
I've walked away from the opportunity to run $1 billion company. I've walked away from the opportunity to be a part of one of the foremost publishing houses on self-help in the world, if not the foremost, as the director of business development.
Mm-hmm.
I walked away from a monastery that I lived in for 10 years and a rabbinical practice that I was about to start, because I was in search of this one thing that I couldn't find, no matter how much I looked for it.
Mm-hmm.
So for people that are coming with a story, not your story, but their story,
Mm-hmm.
of one that is hard stories. You know, we've some of us have had hard stories,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to not Pollyannish those stories by saying, we can say everything about that what's happened to us has been good, but sometimes those stories create a history for us that's hard to break the mosaic there and move.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get people to that place where they even know what inner peace is?
Yeah, it's a process. It's a journey.
Yeah.
A lot of it starts with deep personal honesty, allowing yourself to shed light on those stories and those beliefs that are misguiding you or navigating you through life. It revolves stillness. I think we're so fast paced and just so go, go, go that we don't really hear or feel connected. So it's figuring out, how can you feel connected? How can you embrace and connect who you really are? It's following your heart more. It's trying to be of service. I mean, there are elements and it's different for each individual, but I think it all starts with that deep personal honesty of what are the stories or the beliefs that no longer ring true to you or that are limiting you. And then also, how can you slow down and reconnect to yourself and find that source of inner peace for you that's also going to be different for everyone, but figuring out what those elements look like, what makes you feel grounded and connected each day, and how can you incorporate those into your life so that it's not months before you have this sense of burnout and disconnect and you're spiraling, but you can kind of be proactive with it from day to day.
So for people who are listening that are going, yes, 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 yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes, right? Because like, who doesn't want to say yes to all those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or yes, I've tried that and it just doesn't. I'm like, that might work for other people, but it doesn't work for me. I have no idea how to slow down. My mind works so quickly, and I'm so caught in a system of things that tells me what I have to do and beliefs that I don't really even know where my voice is anymore. I don't have any idea how to find it.
Yeah.
What would be the first thing that you would tell people to do?
Well, especially for people that are so fast and go, 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 I think you have to figure out what it is that helps your minds, that you almost zone out. What is that thing? And it's different for everyone. For me, it's time in nature. Because some people, if you're go, go, go and you're not into meditation, jumping into meditation can seem a chore and a burden. It takes
Right.
time. But it's think about what are the things in your life that you tend to lose yourself in a good way, you know, that make you feel that sense of peace. Is it time in nature? Is it painting? Is it writing? You know, what is that moment for you? And do a little bit of that to start, and then ease your way into slow meditation. It could just be 30 seconds to start. But I think just helping your minds learn to just slow down a little bit it's really important. Also, just questions. You know, I love questions. Questions, I think, trigger the heart of the matter. So don't just journal in a sake of journal to you know, document your day, but think about some good deep questions that might help you do that personal honesty and reflect and just make it a habit to get into that. But it ultimately comes down to little habits that you can do.
Yeah. Where do people find those questions to ask?
I do have some of those questions. I actually, I have just a free guide of some that I found to be really impactful when you're going through those transitional times. So those are on my website. I have a free goodie section, so they're
Okay.
there.
And share with us your website now. We'll put it in the show notes
Yeah.
also. Okay. But
So it's higherlevelliving.org.
say it again.
Higherlevelliving.org.
Okay. So at higherlevelliving.org, if you want to get started in the process of, like, it's great to journal however you want to journal, just share your thoughts and do that. But if you want to get started in the process of some questions that will open up possibilities for you,
Mm-hmm.
Nicole has those free of charge for you right on her website. It's a free service. And go there and start to ask those questions, start to journal to some of those things, start to allow those questions to bring out of you the questions that your soul wants to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to work with you,
Mm-hmm.
why would they come to work with you? What would it be that what do you find people, because life coaches are a dime a dozen. I believe what you're doing is a little bit different than what a life coach does, even though
Mm-hmm.
it probably falls under the category of life coach.
Mm-hmm.
I love the unique twist that you have of finding voice, because if you have to go to Nicole's site to find the questions to ask yourself, to draw out of you what you believe, you probably have some lack of ability to be able to touch the voice in you that wants to ask you those questions also. So there's no judgment there. There's just, it shows how disconnected we are from ourselves to be
Mm-hmm.
able to ask ourselves those questions too. But what what do you find is the sort of overriding quality that people want to find out when they come to you for coaching or to work with you?
So I think the biggest thing is finding that we think we have this right vision for our life, or this right path for our life. And so it's helping you see yourself more clearly, or what the best path for you is, which you can change and it can evolve. So it's not just taking your life to the next level, which is what a lot of life coaches will do, which is wonderful, but it's also helping you feel at peace with who you are along the way. So it is strengthening you from the inside out, helping you feel more connected, helping you bring the best of you, regardless of adversity or anxiety. It breaks my heart how anxiety is on the rise, and it's almost become the norm in society in this burnout culture. So what I really, in a world where people feel invisible or unheard or anxious or burnt out or sleepwalk, so many of us are sleepwalking through life, just stuck on autopilot. I really help to wake you up to who you are and what means the most to you and what you really want and what will bring you that greater sense of inner peace in your own life.
If you heard what she said, like I heard what she said, I can't encourage you enough to contact her, because it's almost pandemic what's happening in the world, of how little we know ourselves and how much we just, Alan Watts says it so beautifully. He says, we wake up each day to make money, to continue living a life of buying things that don't mean anything to us, to impress other people, that make us unhappy, to continue buying things make us unhappy, to impress other people, to do things. And we're just caught in this cycle of sleepwalking through life, where do you go to lunch? The same place. What do you order? The same thing. How do you get there? The same route. We've become routinely fit. And if your routines are bringing you happiness and joy, fabulous. Stay with them. Like, ride those routines till the end of time. But if they're not bringing you happiness and joy, have the courage to contact somebody like Nicole and allow her the opportunity to see if she can open up some doorways for you to hear your own voice. Like, one of the things I like about her, one of the things that drew me to her, is that we so completely resonate together in this. It's not her voice that she's trying to put on top of yours. It's her voice that is opening up a door for you to hear your voice. And if you feel like you want that, please contact her. Say you heard her on the Mosaic podcast. Say you're coming to her, but not because I gain anything from her, because she'll know the benefit of what happens when she uses her voice here with us today. Okay. We're coming to that place where unfortunately we have to wind down. I think I could talk to you forever.
Same. Right? It's nice when you can break down the barriers and have honest conversation.
Yeah, it's been real. And I so appreciate you. And it wasn't hard, was it?
No.
Okay. So I end every podcast asking the same question. It's one of the only questions I always ask. And that is, when you look out your window into the world that exists with all the advances that we've had and all the shortcomings that we have, is the world that exists today the world you dream? And this is especially significant for you because you just got married. You just had your honeymoon. And which, congratulations, by the way. Fabulous.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you'll start a family of your own or not, but in the event that you will, or even if you're not, is this the world that you always dreamed, the way that exists right now, that you dreamt of always handing over to your children and your children's children?
We're getting closer. But in this moment, yes.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Tell me what that world looks like, because I love when people answer the question yes, because 97% of the people look out and say no. So tell me the world that you see, and tell the people that are listening the world you see, because we need harbingers of that world here amongst us.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that you get to choose what you see in the world. And that was a big lesson for me. And so I could choose to look at, I am not where I want to be at in terms of figuring out my messages, or I don't have a family yet. But when I pause and allow myself to slow down, I see that, wow, I look out my window and the sun is shining. It's beautiful colors because it's fall here in New England. I have love in my husband, my friends, my family. I get to meet people like you on a day-to-day. I have an adorable puppy who gives me unconditional love, and I'm healthy. It's just a moment to pause and reflect on the things to be grateful for.
Out of everything that she said, and she said a lot of things that I want you to listen to, that have tremendous value. I just want to thank you for that, because I asked that question to someone, and again, 97% of the people say, no, it's not. There's too much confusion. There's too much fighting. There's too much anxiety. There's gridlock everywhere we turn, which is also true. But someone looked at me and said, in every situation, there is always something that is beautiful. And I just choose to look at the world, the beautiful thing that's in the terribleness of the situation, and and tie my boat to that. And it's sort of what you just said, which I really admire and enjoy. If I could summarize, just take a moment and just for our listeners, what I got from today and from talking to Nicole really deeply and really importantly is how important it is, no matter what life is giving you, to stand up and find your voice in this world. Because if you do not, the world will act in ways to take your voice from you, whether that's through a diagnosis of a disease, whether that's from taking your ability to speak, whether that's by just living a rote life and continuing to be unseen and unheard because you don't know what will happen if you get out of that. And when you find people along the way who don't only say the message, but have been given the message as their message by the life occurrences that they've had, I can't encourage you enough to contact them, to reach out to them, to see if there's a way that they can help you open up doors that you don't know exist, so that you can share who you are with the world. Because this world as a mosaic is made up of 8 billion actually divergent voices. And when we have the courage to all speak, we create an artistry that is beyond anything that we can ever imagine. And the world we live in now, unfortunately, we're only hearing voices of very few. Those who have money behind them that are telling us what to invest in, those who believe a certain way. but each of our voices has power. And when we come together to create a chorus of our voices or a mosaic of our voices, that world becomes our world. Nicole, tell us one more time how people can get in touch with you, and we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah,
and we'll put all your links to your social media there as well. But just tell people again, because, and I hope people will get in touch with you.
Yeah, so you can go to my website, higherlevelliving.org. There's the option for complimentary consult calls there. There's some free goodies, some self-paced courses, all easy entries for you to just get started and start experiencing those shifts in your life.
So thank you so much for being here with us today, for taking your time, for taking a risk with an imperfect stranger as much.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
And for those of you listening, thank you for again sharing your time with us and for being with us. We look forward to having you enjoy all the episodes. If you particularly like this episode on iTunes, we would appreciate you saying you like it. If you want to know more about Nicole, she told you how to find out more about her. If you want to know more about me, themosaiconline.com is the website of my work that I do. My book, The Mosaic, is available through Amazon. All of us give power to all of us when we allow each other to have voice. Know the power of your voice. And Nicole, thank you for sharing yours with us today.
Thank you.
Okay. Ciao.
Bye. Have a great day.